Hey guys, and welcome to On the DL, episode 32, Dak and Lan coming at ya. Today we want to do another top 3 common mistakes, and the topic we're going to be covering today is intuitive eating and mindful eating. Being mindful around food is obviously really important, but are you ready for it? First point is definitely going from all the structure in the world, macros or a meal plan, tracking in Google Sheets, having a coach, to absolutely chucking it all out and having nothing. Some people can do that and they're fine, but most cases are when you go from that structure and that calendar approach to absolutely nothing, it's kind of like a hot mess.
It causes a massive amount of fear and anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if changing from structure to mindful or intuitive eating causes more trouble than it's worth, what's the point? We can graduate to it, right? So the way I say it to my clients is you have to earn intuitive eating, or you have to earn mindful eating, because if you don't understand food well and you don't understand your body well,
how can you be mindful if you don't know anything about
exactly
nutrition?
right. If you can't listen to your own body's cues, if you don't know the difference between hunger and desire, if you don't know the difference between being tired and bored and actually needing
or being full.
Exactly right.
And I guess if you're tracking macros, obviously the need for consistency is there because you have a goal. So you don't really listen. You don't really listen to your body. You just kind of, okay, sweet, I've got to eat these meals, or I've got to hit these macros, and that's all I've got to do. Doesn't matter about what I want.
Because it's for a purpose.
Yes, which is fine.
It's designed for that, right?
100%.
Like if you want to lose weight, you're going to be in a deficit. If you're in a deficit, hopefully you're losing body fat. If you're losing body fat, your leptin is going to go down. You're not going to get satiated very easily. Same vice versa. If you're trying to put on muscle mass and you're in a surplus,
you gotta eat when you don't want to.
Exactly right.
Which is fine because we have a goal. But if you go from that to then being forced to listen to your body, and you've never really had to do that before, it can be quite challenging.
Absolutely,
From 0 to 100.
You are 100% going to make mistakes, and you will in any journey, right? But it's a recipe for making more mistakes if you go from all to nothing.
Yeah.
If you gradually introduce things, like say you eat a structured plan Monday to Friday, and then you eat mindfully on the weekends, or something along those lines, you can start to isolate where you might have strengths and weaknesses, and then you can take that as you go along and say, okay, well, I know I'm good at this bit of mindful eating, but I
need to work and improve on this area.
That's it. Yeah. So what can I do to fix this so that it complements that?
Yeah.
And that's a really nice, gentle, progressive way of doing it. It also means, and it means you're unlikely to go to one extreme or the other. So you're not going to accidentally lose all of your gains because you've gone to mindful eating, and you're also not going to put on a whole ton of body fat because you're keeping it to those 2 days initially, just to test the waters.
It's a lot easier to process and to manage and to fix 2 days or a day, or the slight add-in than a whole week.
Absolutely, it is.
Because you're still in it, but you're trying to fix it.
That's
so
exactly
you
right.
Focus on it.
Exactly right. Especially if there's no structure. Like if there's no structure, how do you fix it?
How do you manage it?
You can't mindfully eat whilst following a plan. You can use a plan to build the knowledge to be able to then go out and mindfully eat. But you can't combine the two and call it mindful eating or intuitive eating. It's just not.
It's still planned eating.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah, which is fine if that's your goal, definitely. But I guess if your goal is to be at that point one day, to be able to be in control emotionally and physically of your food choices, then obviously mindful eating, intuitive eating is a skill that you have to build. But if you expect that you're going to be perfect at it straight away and you don't want to fuck it up, it's just not.
You might as well quit.
You might as well just stay on the plan. But that also ties in with our second point of not being ready. And that can come in different ways. You could be, mentally not ready, but you also might not know what a fucking micronutrient is.
Yeah, that's right. Education is one big part of it, right? So if you don't have a really good understanding of your macronutrients, your micronutrients, and why they're all important, it's probably not a great idea to go into intuitive eating, because you're going to be making food choices just based on what you want, desire, which is not always a bad thing, but it will tend to lead to a less balanced path.
I would live on cheesecake if I had no knowledge.
I don't even know what I would do.
It's got a balanced macronutrient profile.
Totally.
I think.
Cheese, it's got protein in it.
Protein, fats, there's some carbs, biscuit base. Like, technically, you could probably hit your macros.
I think she's got a new diet coming out in a couple of weeks' time.
Cheesecake. But yeah, like huge, like if you don't have a good relationship with food, then how can you mindfully eat well for your body? Because you're not really thinking about your body.
No.
You're thinking about, oh, I had a really bad day at work, I'm going to eat everything in my sight, or I'm going to go out and really eat, make myself sick, and then I'm going to compensate later. That's not mindfully eating. That's ignoring an issue.
Or if you've had such a tight relationship with food that mindful eating basically just means that you're going to follow exactly the same plan that you have been following, but without looking at it. That's also not intuitive or mindful eating. It's just following your plan.
I guess you can build on that. So like if you have a meal plan that you're following and you want to go, into that mindful eating, you could obviously know that meal plan off by heart, but then you could start to play around with the meal options and something that maybe isn't on your plan.
That's right.
You can kind of like
start
progress into that. Yeah.
You're not going to go from eating, it's not like you would immediately go from eating protein, carbs and fats in 5 meals across the day to just eating cheesecake as your example and think that that's going to be a good choice. We know that's not the case. So using what you have been doing as a guide could be a useful tool, but not if you're changing your goal. So if your goal is different, so if you're trying to build a relationship with food and you've been on a cutting plan for the last 8 weeks,
that's not going to happen.
Trying to continue to follow the cutting plan just without looking at it is going to be more detrimental than it is positive.
Yeah. Well, how can you, there are ways to, obviously, if you're mindfully eating, to alter what you're eating, but in most cases, you're going to have a really good relationship with your body and you can kind of be honest with yourself. It's like, oh, I feel fat, so I'm going to do a cut. It's like, well, I'm putting on a little bit of weight, things are tipping up a little bit. I'm not really happy with that, so I'm going to cut back a little bit. There's different methods of how you do it, but I think if you really do want to be successful in mindful eating, you need to have a good relationship with food. You can't have that bad relationship with food or that fear of eating food, because the fear is not going to just go away if you stop tracking.
And that comes back to the earning of mindful eating as well. If you don't work through all of your psychological issues with food and then you try and mindfully or intuitively eat, it's probably going to go the other way. It's probably going to create more anxiety, create more fear, make you feel less in control, which is a win if you're in the right headspace.
But if you're
and
not,
it's a big negative if you're not in
you
the
could
right
try and
headspace.
control other areas as well.
That's right.
But that comes back to the education as well.
Completely.
If you don't know why or how you can explain the scale coming up, after overindulging,
that's right,
and that freaks you out, then why are you on the scale anyway if you're mindfully eating? But that can be a trigger as well, definitely.
Absolutely, you want to be mindful. Mindful's the word of the day.
mindfully.
You want to be aware of the things that you perhaps don't do particularly well, so that you can monitor them more closely. It's just, that's where the change is going to come.
Yeah, definitely. That's brings us to our third point. Obviously, if you don't have any form of tracking, you need to track something.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can't adjust.
Well, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? Obviously, if standing on the scale is a really bad experience, don't do it. Don't do it. But, there's nothing wrong with, doing calipers, seeing your body fat percentage, seeing your muscle mass. Obviously, it depends on your person and your goals.
Yeah.
But, how can you, if you're not tracking roughly what you're eating or roughly what you look like or roughly how you feel, how can you know if what you're doing is working or if it's good?
Yeah. You need some form of tracking method for your progress, right? So
if you want to progress.
Well, even if you don't, right? Mindful eating, so I intuitively eat, have done for a very, very long time, but like I've said to you many times, it's because I don't have a set goal now. Yeah. When I do have a goal, so say for instance I get booked for a photo shoot or something like that, I will follow a plan for a few weeks beforehand, tighten things up, and then I'll go back to my intuitive eating afterwards. I've always had a relatively good relationship with food, partly because I've got a decent metabolism, and that is unfortunately, some people do better than others in terms of metabolism. I can go over a little bit and I'll be fine, whereas other people might not. So for me, when it comes to this intuitive eating and structure, they're like a tag team thing. They are both useful, but for different purposes. But I still need to be able to track where I am, even though my goal is not to progress one way or the other. Because otherwise I'm not going to know if something negative is happening. So it's not always about tracking your progress because you've got a desired outcome.
Also keeping an eye on things.
Exactly right. I don't want to do anything silly. I have been in the position in the past where I've dropped a lot of weight unintentionally. And that's not good for me. I don't feel good when I sit like that. I'm fatigued, I'm lethargic, And to regulate that, I need to get on the scales relatively regularly so that I can say to myself, okay, scale weight's dropping. I need to eat a little bit more. Because let's face it, we're busy girls. We'll miss meals from time to time.
And I guess, a meal every now and then is going to have a large impact.
That's it.
Obviously, stress plays a role. Coffee, everything. Life in general takes a toll. And I think it's, and you can use it from both sides. You can use it from a positive side, saying, okay, I want to stay the same. I need to track things to make sure I'm staying the same. I want to obviously maintain this for a long period of time, and I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. Maybe you can eat more food. Maybe your training schedule's changed. Maybe you're moving more. Maybe you're more stressed. Whatever it may be. Maybe you're burning more calories. So you need to eat more food, but you don't know that until you step on the scale or you do your calipers. Same vice versa. Maybe you want to put on weight. Maybe you want to put on weight. And you obviously, how can you put on weight if you're not tracking things either? So it's vice versa. You need to track some things. Obviously, in saying that, if you're mindfully eating, you should have a good relationship with the data area of tracking. So
because you should have graduated from that.
So, I'm coming at a point where I'm like, don't do things that may trigger you, but then also you should be okay to do those things if you're in that position.
Something I get my intuitive eaters to do periodically is just run a day's worth of calories through my fitness style and see what they are actually eating. Because humans are repetitive. We tend to repeat the same thing on a daily basis just because it's easier. So we find systems that work that aren't necessarily a plan or a structure, but they're systems that work for us that might have a little bit of variation in them, but not a lot. And then we just repeat that over and over again. So if we track that once every 2 to 4 weeks, we can have a look at what we're actually currently doing.
And be honest with ourselves as well. Maybe you've got a busy lifestyle and maybe you're not realising that you've cut down on your vegetable intake.
That's exactly right.
Just those little things that we forget.
Subconscious things that we do without being aware that
maybe you're having a little bit more snacky than usual, then obviously that's going to add up at the end of the day that we don't even realise. Same as coffee intake. Maybe you're having too many coffees. Obviously, depending on the coffee you have, calories come with the milk and stuff like that. Maybe it's been affecting your sleep. There's so many areas that we can decline, and there's so many areas we can improve. I guess it's about if we're not checking in on ourselves. Who is?
Because you can track qualitative measurements as well. It doesn't have to be quantitative. It doesn't always have to be numbers.
100%.
Tracking your sleep, how you feel, how your bowels are moving, all of these qualitative things, they give you feedback as well. And tracking in terms of watching what your body is doing. You don't have to measure. You can do photos. You can do how do you feel in your clothes.
How do you feel around mealtime? Before and after.
How are you moving? All of these different things are great ways of tracking your progress.
Yeah, definitely. But so if you're wanting to go into that mindful eating area, the 3 things that pretty much we say don't do. Don't go from all the structure in the world to a coach, to a program, to a meal plan, to numbers, to nothing. You've never been there before. You've never been in that space. So take someone with you. Be patient with the progression of it to ensure that you can actually get there and stay there. And don't do it if you're not ready. Not everyone is ready. I know I'm not. And it's okay to not be ready, but don't force yourself to. Even knowing you have to do something doesn't make it easier.
No.
You need to climb to it. You need to be patient with yourself and honest with yourself as well. Good support system really helps. And, track things. We don't know we're getting better at things if we don't keep on top of ourselves. And same as the other end, how do we know if we're going backwards if we're not tracking things? And that can be physically or mentally as well. Yeah. And our habits play a huge role in that as well. So just keep an eye on yourself, be patient, and ask questions. Ask the right people about if you need help with it. Ask us if you want to as well. But thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share.
Drop your questions.
Questions, yeah. Like, is that everything? Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week.
Bye.